Mastering your brain and how it all works. The most important and complex things in the world come with no instruction manual on how we should use them. The biggest being our own brains, the most complex supercomputer in the world that creates all our feelings, sensations, and experiences. We are left to figure it out all on our own, but fortunately, neuroscientists and psychologists are uncovering more of the brain's secrets every day. While there is still so much left to learn, we know there are things now that we can practically use to help become happier, smarter, and more effective versions of ourselves. So the question is, how does our brain work? The brain is made up of neurons, and these neurons are a network of cells that are different from everyone, that gives us our unique skills, abilities, and individual personalities. Every single experience that you have can be mapped to one of these neurons. Each represents a sensation, a memory, an experience, a feeling, or something else. Your version is mapped to a huge array of neurons that represent what you're seeing, and likewise, your memory is made up of lots of interlinked neurons that reflect your thoughts and ideas. These neurons are grouped into different regions throughout the brain based on their function. In the occipital lobe, we have all the neurons responsible for our sight. In the motor cortex, we have neurons that correspond with movements and sensations throughout our body. Our prefrontal cortex is where we handle things like planning and motivation. Our brain stems handles breathing, and so on and so forth. So there's all these different neurons that do different things and functions for our bodies, sight, whatever it is, all these different things. This is why damage to a specific area of our brain can result in a loss of function, and the organization that there's been cases of like head trauma that leads a patient to losing their memory to even just a specific thing that they've learned about or remembered in the past. So when neurons fire up and receive enough stimulation, this will result in the release of neurotransmitters. These are chemicals released that alter the way neurons work, and perhaps making them more or less likely to fire, or perhaps making the event seem more or less important, sad, happy, memorable. Another factor that influences our individual differences is our balance of neurotransmitters and hormones. If you have lots of the feel-good neurotransmitter serotonin, then you will often be in a good mood and be relaxed. If you have lots of the cortisol and glutamate, then you will be more wired and panicked in many situations. So neurotransmitters are just a result of what is happening in the brain, but can also be the result of biological signals from our bodies. For example, if you have low blood sugar, then your brain produces more of the stress hormone cortisol. This response is intended to make us seek out food, but it is also the reason that we tend to feel anxious and angry when we haven't eaten for a certain amount of time. This is where the experience of hungry comes from. Serotonin can be released when we eat something and our blood sugar spikes. This is why we feel good when we've just eaten. That serotonin eventually converts to melatonin, which is the sleep neurotransmitter, and which suppresses neuroactivity. This is why we'll often feel tired and dopey after a big meal. And there's countless other things that also influence our balance of brain chemicals. For instance, bright light can reduce the production of melatonin and increase the production of cortisol and nitric oxide to wake us up. Another thing to remember is brain plasticity. It is the brain's ability to adapt and grow. For a long time, it was thought that the brain only formed new neurons and new connections during childhood, and after that point, we were set in stone. what we've learned is what we have, and we can't really advance from there. However, we now know that this process continues until we die and is a crucial aspect on the way our brain functions. It does not slow down slightly, it does slow down slightly in adults, but it is still what gives us the ability to learn, to change our minds, and to acquire new skills. Brain plasticity occurs through practice, repetition, and events that we believe to be very important. A saying among neuroscientists goes, "What fires together, wires together." In other words, if you experience something, a neuron will light up. If you experience that thing at the same time as another one, two neurons will or may light up. And more likely, two groups of thousands of neurons. If you keep re-experiencing those two things together, a connection between them will begin to form. Eventually, one neuron firing will cause the other one to fire up. This is how you can learn a complex series of movements, such as performing a dance, or how you can memorize words in a new language. So that's kind of the science breakdown of how our brain works, and the whole chemical aspect of our body. Tomorrow we'll discuss how to control your brain and maximize your performance. We want to be igniting the good neurons always in our body to form those habits so they fire up in the future, so they ignite other ones that we want to be up and running. So keep that in mind. Look out for tomorrow's video, how to train your brain to maximize your performance. Like the video, comment below what you think, subscribe to the channel, check out my free resource guide in the description below. We'll see you guys tomorrow.